Welcome to another session. I hope you're well. I'm going to speak today about a concept that I think most people will understand. Today's session, I speak directly to the ladies, and I'm going to teach you. Perhaps, I hope I do so in the right manner. But my intention is to show you and provide you with some of the things that I would teach and I'll share with a daughter, a friend, a loved one, a sister. So in this conversation, think about this as a conversation with someone who cares, maybe a big brother, and take, as you will, what you think is right for you. The theme of today's session and the topics of today's session is you cannot have it all. You cannot have it all. My experience and my observation of life in the modern day is one where we have so many appetites, so many desires, and we are insatiable. We are trying to have it all. Unfortunately, life is about choices. The choices we make will come with constraints, costs, and they will also come with consequences. But the key part of the choices we make are that we will always have to make a trade-off. There are no solutions. And I'm speaking specifically in this instance to relationships. There are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. The choices and decisions that we make necessitate a trade-off. Therefore, if you are a woman, think about this carefully and take this to heart. One of the first things I learned, and I learned this from a person called Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey was a business consultant. Many years ago, he wrote a book, several books, but one of them was The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, or The 7 Habits of Successful People. He was a business consultant, and one concept came to mind, and this concept you see across life, but explained in different ways. His concept was a simple one. He says, begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. So, with regards to relationships, each and every one of us, we want something. Now, we may not know what we want, but we want something. Because there's a part of our nature that is always seeking to grow, to develop, to progress, to improve, or to transcend where we are. We all want something. It's important to begin with an idea of what your true north should look like, should be. So begin with the end in mind. Relationships are supposed to be easy if you understand how to make decisions correctly, but also if you understand the role of a relationship in your life. Now, by beginning with the end in mind, I'm simply saying two things. Number one, decide and determine what lifestyle you want to have. Number one. Number two, decide what type of life you like to lead. Now, these might be difficult conversations the younger you are, but the older you get, the more clarity you have about what you want. So let me speak to you as though you are 21. Now, I remember when I was 21, and the idea was as though I had discovered life. I felt that I knew much more than I did, and I felt that the future had much more in stock for me than I could dream or imagine. I'm going to say a few things. My intention is to help. First thing I would say is, number one, you are not that special, and life doesn't care. Life doesn't care about your dreams and your goals, your challenges and your struggles. Life just is. Now, the world you live in and the people around the world you live in are not familiar with all of your struggles, all of your successes, and all of your journeys. What they do not give you or gift you at first instance is patience, understanding, forgiveness, tolerance. The world doesn't really care. I hope that is used at some point in your life. The whole purpose of that statement is to encourage you to get on with living or get on with dying. Make your life as you want it to be. Don't sit on the corner waiting for another person to understand your struggles and your journeys and your pain and your suffering. We all have a story. The Victim Olympic has become a recent Olympics that people sign up to willingly, where they sit down and they talk about all of their trials and tribulations, and they waste time. If you are 21, you're young, you have youth, you have beauty, you might think that all of those things will always be around and available. They don't. We get old, we are dying, and there is nothing, whether that be an object, such as humans, we are objects, we are animated objects, but there are no objects, products, things, whether it be buildings, that over time develop an appreciation in their value despite their dilapidation and deterioration, disintegration across time. Nothing in life tends to increase in value through seasons, across time, and most importantly, by use. So we are losing time and we're losing value. Number one, decide the lifestyle you would like to have in the future. At 21, it may not be very clear, and this is where you sit down with someone wiser, older, and help construct a series of options, of things that you might consider. At 21, there's a possibility that a picture of a family with loved ones and kids may not be in your, may not even be to your taste and liking. But as you approach 30, that desire starts to kick in and set in. So sit down, the younger you are, sit down with your parents, your father and your mother. They should be the ones guiding you, and design a potential option or option list of the lifestyle you want, and then the life you want to lead. And once you've done that, you have to choose what relationship genre that you will subscribe to. This is important. There are basically two separate genres with regards to relationships. One is the traditional genre and the other is the modern genre. The traditional genre is what we've done prior to, say, the 1940 period. Since the 1960s, we have seen a different genre. So if you go from 1945, and perhaps even if you extended it up until 50s plus, you would have been, and go backwards, that would be the traditional genre of relationships. Since the 1960s, we've developed something called the modern genre, which is where we see in the modern West. We call that modern dating. And in the sessions that I have done and shared, I have talked about modern relationships because they're very different to traditional relationships. Decide what you want, lifestyle-wise. Determine the life you want to lead and experience. And that would include, what do you want? What does happiness look for you 50, 60 years away? Do you want to have a family? Would you like to have kids? How many kids would you like to have? Where would you like to live? What kind of house would you want to live in? What kind of lifestyle would you want your kids to have? Where would you want them to study? The list goes on. Sit down and decide. Then decide the type of life you want to lead. A life filled with love and sharing, exploration, a life, you can define this in any way you wish. Then you decide, do I want to be in the modern or the traditional genre of relationships? Because both offer different things. Now, once you've done all of that, you've outlined your list of what you want. Life is about people. Relationships are about choices and trade-offs. That would mean that you cannot have all of what you want on your own. You need to pair with someone to make life somehow similar to your dreams and your goals. Now, this will mean if you are a woman, you have to identify the men who can meet and give you, whether that be gifting or whether that be collaborative gifting, or pair with you to help create that life you wish. You have to identify the men. And here is the key part. You have to identify the men across different categories: age, character, provision potential, protection potential, and the rest. Whatever you choose to. Just remember, what you're doing is you've decided what you want. Now, let me make it more simple. Let's assume you said, I am 21, but by the time I turn 27, I would like to be married. And within 5 years of my marriage, I would like to have 3 kids. And I would like to live in central London. I would like to have a house, let's say, depending on where you live, central London, somewhere around Westminster, a Georgian townhouse, 4-bedroom or 5-bedroom, 5 or 6 bathrooms, 2 living rooms, roughly give or take 300 square meters, a small garden, but close to a larger garden, maybe close to Regent's Park, Hyde Park. That's your lifestyle. I like to be able to drive a good car, but you live in central London, so you're not too bothered. But the key thing could be that lifestyle. I like to go to theatres and go to events and be part of a social club. I want to be a socialite. I want to be influential. I want to meet and greet people. I would like to have perhaps some assistants at home to take care of the kids. I want 3 kids, 2 boys, 1 girl, 2 boys, 1 girl. And I'm going to stair-step the kids 135. So, and whilst I have the kids, I do not want to have to pay or make any significant contribution to the family expenses or the family income to meet the family expenses. So I'll be out for about 10 years during my childbearing and nurturing stages. And once the kids get to about 5, once the youngest gets to 5 and they go to preschool, I would like to perhaps, maybe even if I don't own, perhaps get involved in some form of art gallery and do, some social things and contribute to society. That could be a lifestyle. We work now backwards, begin with the end in mind. We then work backwards and say simply, okay, what kind of man would be able to meet those expectations? We have to put it in numbers. Numbers are easy to quantify. We say, well, if you lived in central London, and let's say you lived in Westminster, and let's just assume in this particular case you lived in Bayswater, and you wanted a 5-bedroom townhouse, Georgian, and you also wanted 5 bathrooms or 6 bathrooms, and everything you described, we work backwards and we simply say, well, okay, that house, 300 square meters or more, at best, cheapest, you're looking at roughly about £6 to £7 million. Bayswater. Even if you don't want to be in Bayswater, Mayfair, the more you move into Mayfair, the more it increases. You don't want to be in Mayfair because it's too expensive, Pimlico, Knightsbridge. We can go through all of central London, Westminster, and we can identify the cost of the house. And the question is a simple one. What would that man need to earn as an income? What would he be doing to be able to earn that amount of money? How old would you want him to be? If you're 27, would you want him to be 27 as well? Or would you be happy if he's 7 years older, 35? Okay, what men at 35 make or can afford houses, townhouses, that are close to £10 million and who earn in excess of a certain amount of salary every single year or month? We work out what industries can provide such compensation. We go through the whole list and we walk back and we say, okay, well, we've identified the age group you want, the character of the men, the provision potential of the men, etc. Now, here's the key part. You've identified the group. Second question. What do those men want from a woman? Very important question. We know what you want. We know the life you want to lead, the lifestyle you want to express and have. but there's a man who will be pairing with you to build or to provide that lifestyle. Now, you also get to choose. At 21, you can say, I don't want to be given everything. I don't want to wait to the finish line to choose that man. I want to build with him. I'm happy to start the building from 22. So I'm about to graduate. So let me look around my university and identify men who potentially could, in 11 years, make that amount of money to give me what I want at the time I am ready. So you decide whether you want to build or whether you just want to wait at the finish line and choose. But the key point is, whether you're looking for the potential in the man or you're looking for the finished good, the actual, what do such men want from a woman? If they were to make a list of their own and they identified their list and what they were looking for in a mate, what would they say? Very important. Now, I talk about two concepts, the Venn diagram, consisting of two circles. One circle has everything that you want to be in one circle. You get to choose. In this particular one circle, we say, it's you, the woman. In the second circle, we say, that's the man and all of his demands and needs. We try to bring the two circles together to form a Venn diagram, which is where they intersect. If the intersection is very little, in other words, it's so small, then it means you have less in common. If it's big, you have more in common. If it overlaps, it means both of you are perfectly made for each other, all things remaining equal. But the key part is actually, your task is to find where those two circles intersect and how large that intersection is, because that intersection will determine whether you get what you want. So you started with what you wanted, you identify the men. I said men, not man, the men. Then you work out where those men could be and who those men could be. You can't just take one, you need a group. The law of large numbers simply says, the more people you find, the higher the likelihood that you will find one for you. The fewer people you find, the lower the likelihood that you will find someone for you. It's a numbers game. Success in life is a numbers game. So you've got clarity on what you want. You understand what he might want from a woman. You've identified where you potentially could overlap. And here's the key part. You then have to decide. You might need to spend some time and decide on what you're willing to give to have what you want. And here's the most important thing. What you're willing to give up to get what you want. We call that last part sacrifice. Sacrifice is simply giving up something of a lower nature for something of a higher nature. And let me say that again. Sacrifice is giving up something of a lower nature to obtain something of a higher nature. You've described a great life, but you are here. That life is there. You're going to have to give something, and you're going to have to give up something. We call that sacrifice. You have to determine. I can't tell you what that will be, but I'm talking about a concept that we call equal exchange. Now, this brings me to a concept, or a few concepts that I think are important. Assuming you've identified what you're willing to give to get what you want, and what you're willing to give up to get what you want, recognizing you may have gone to university or college for 4 years. You gave something up, tuition, time, resources, opportunities, because you wanted that accreditation. You gave something. You gave your present, but you gave up something, all the opportunity costs to get something. You have to think about men in the same manner. Most women make a mistake of thinking, I'm attractive, I'm young and youthful, I'll just pluck a man up off the tree when I'm ready. Those who play that game lose. And I hope you do not lose. But here is the key part. We'll talk about 5 concepts now. Number 1, you have to get clear on the value exchange, value proposition. What do you bring to the table? In other words, what are you giving in exchange? When you've met him, you know what he wants. You've identified what you're willing to give up and what you're willing to give. You get the opportunity. The value exchange has to be very clear. And I will say this to women, maybe with the exception of one woman. In my entire lifetime, I have never met more than one woman who has been very clear on the value exchange the value gifted on her part in a first interaction. I say it very clear, in the first interaction. In other words, clarity on what she brings to the table and clarity on what she understands the man might need. The first is you have to identify the value exchange. Number two, once you've done that, once you understand this is what I'm bringing, and it has to be something not necessarily unique, but something specific to the man that you have identified as an avatar. Number two, you have to get in proximity. Good men and great men are rare. They do not come to your doors and knock on the door, unlike Jesus, where he says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If you open up the door, would you let me in?" No. Because of the rarity of good men and great men, you have to find them. So you have to get in proximity of where they could be. When you get in proximity, number three, here is the key part of what women struggle with. Most women are obscure to men in that particular niche area, just in the same way most men are obscure to attractive women and youthful women. I'll say that again. When you get in proximity, obscurity is your main challenge. You have to, number three, get attention. If you were to walk down, let's say, Camden High Street, and as you approach Camden Market, you will see so many people. I'll give you a different example. If you go to Portobello Market, or even Brixton Market, or even if you went to Borough Market, you will always see people on the periphery, on the outside of the market, looking to draw your attention to either a stall, a shop, or sell something. I've always been fascinated at the ones who are able to get me to stop and listen. London, you always have people on the streets, or even Oxford Street. Someone is always looking to stop you and sell something or get your attention. Many do it very poorly. Some are exceptional. They can get your attention. That is what you have to do. You get in proximity, you get attention. When you get attention, at the moment you get his attention, one of the things you'll find out is by getting his attention, you become aware of the women that are potentially going to be around him, seeking his attention. Now, this is perhaps unusual for most women to hear. You have to compete. You are not competing with the women who are usually around you. You will be competing with the women who are and desire to be around him. Now, if anyone has told you as a woman that you're beautiful, and maybe you are, and you're a great person, maybe you are, and you're fun to be around, that could be true. All of those statements are unnecessary, especially if they do not lead you to your dreams and goals. Most women have been taught that they do not have to compete for a man. Most people have actually been taught that men are disposable, that you just pick one up and you can pick another up and you can toss that one there and you can toss that one there. Unfortunately, those who know how to compete are the ones who win. Let's say you compete and you are successful, and there is some union taking place, whether that be short-term or long-term. The key part is to transfer that short-term conversation, introduction, conversation, and move it beyond just physical or intimacy and move it towards a relationship. To do that, you need the ability to retain the man you've acquired or the relationship you've acquired. Retention is where most people fail. You attract a man with your beauty. You retain a man with things other than your beauty. Your attitude and your appearance, your behavior and your beauty, your communication and conversational skills, your digital avatar, and your demeanor, your emotional intelligence, your empathy, your friendship, your fitness, and your forgiving spirit, your inspiration, your insights, your gifts. Sometimes, for some men, your godly nature, your gratitude. H, your humility, how humble and some people are too hostile and therefore they lose men. And the list goes on. J, your joy. K, your kindness. You attract a man with your beauty and your youth, but you retain him with your self-image. A, B, C, D up to D, and extending up to Z of your self-image. Retention is the key part. Now, let's assume you've successfully done all of what I've shared so far. The question is, assuming you find the man, and assuming you start dating the man, and assuming you guys have a union that is blessed and beautiful, here's the key question. Can you still have it all? The answer is no. You cannot have it all. No one has it all. You have to decide what you're willing to give to keep what you've created and what you're willing to give up to maintain what you have created. I'll say this in closing. Wise women build up and retain and keep a beautiful home, a beautiful life, beautiful relationships with their mouths and how they speak, with their words. Unwise women destroy what they have created with their mouths, what they have created with their attitude and their behavior and their presence. With both women, something is, I guess there's a common denominator. That common denominator is that you get to choose. Your words become flesh. Most men, generally speaking, and here is where I go back to the question about, are you looking for something modern or something traditional? Most men will fall into one of two camps. You have to understand what those men want as a tailored offering and give what they want to them. Now, I hope this has been useful.